Unfortunately, a disabled person like you is not needed. Live your best life. What is this? A single piece of paper was placed on the table. It was addressed to me indeed. Unlike my sister, I was born without the freedom to use both of my legs. Perhaps that was troublesome for him. Then a call from my father came through on my smartphone. Hello, is that Stacy? Did you see the letter? I did, but, well, that's what it is. See you. Wait a minute. What do you want? Obviously, what is this letter about? It's exactly what it says. I'm tired of raising a daughter like you. Don't worry about me. The call was unilaterally ended. Desperately thinking about what to do, I decided to call my mother next. Hello, Mom. From the look of it, you've seen the letter. I'm just a nuisance because I'm disabled and even called a monster. I see, but don't worry, huh? 8 years have passed since that shocking statement from my mother. Then my father showed up at the high-rise apartment where I live. How can a disabled person like you live in a place like this? Shall I tell you then? I told him the secret, and with that, he went insane and experienced hell. My name is Stacy, and I turned 26 this year. Now I live a comfortable life on the 55th floor of a high-rise apartment. However, getting to this point in life was filled with various hardships. That's because I was born with a progressive muscle disease. I still remember a word from my father when I was about kindergarten age. Why were you born this way? Isn't it your fault? Jane was born without any problems. Jane is my sister, 2 years my senior. At that time, I was listening to my parents' voices coming from the living room. My room was next to the living room just in case something happened. Even as a child, I understood they were complaining about me. You shouldn't say such things. Then you take care of her from now on. That's ridiculous. Just take care of it, will you? I quietly covered myself with a blanket. From that day on, their attitude towards me visibly hardened. They wouldn't even give me a proper response when I spoke to them. Being born with disabled legs must have been the cause. From then on, my mother always tried to keep me from worrying. Still, I did what I could on my own, and I never felt pitiful for being born this way. My sister's influence was significant in how I felt. I stayed up late yesterday and overslept a bit. Sorry. It's okay, I managed to get dressed partway. I'll help you. No, you need to get ready first. Since starting elementary school, my sister has helped me with morning preparations. My father disapproved of my sister helping me and would complain. How long are you going to do this? I'm almost done. Stacy can do it herself, can't she? Come on, you can do it, right? Yes, I can. While dressing, my sister would sneak in to help me, avoiding our father's gaze. Sorry about earlier. It's okay, I can't always rely on you. Then my sister hugged me. What's this all of a sudden, Stacy? I'll protect you. Then I'll also work hard so I can protect you too. It felt like our bond as sisters deepened. We tried not to talk much in front of our father. Showing that we got along well would only invite his comments. Well then, I'm off. Yes, take care. Father would go to work on holidays several times a month. Those days were heaven for me. Normally, if I played games or had fun, he would unreasonably get angry at me. Dad isn't here today, so let's play a lot. That's okay, right? Sure, but don't overdo it. I know. Then I enjoyed playing games with my sister in the living room. It must have been about 2 hours later. At this time, my mother had gone out shopping. I heard the sound of the entrance door opening and thought my mother had returned. What are you doing? I turned around at the sound of my father's voice. Dad, why are you here? Aren't you at work? I came back because I forgot something. Where's Mom? She went shopping. And what are you two doing? Tell me. Looking into my father's eyes, my body froze in fear. It felt as if my entire body had turned to stone. Seeing this, my sister tried to protect me. We were playing a game, but it was me who invited Stacy. Stacy did nothing wrong, really? Yes, really. Then my father grabbed my sister's arm. I thought my sister was going to be hit. At that moment, I felt a duty to protect her. I said I wanted to play, so please don't hit her. So it was you after all. Go to your room. Yes. I headed to my room. The only consolation was that the house was built to be wheelchair accessible. I heard my father shouting. I regretted not being able to do anything. As I was thinking, the door to my room opened. I braced myself, thinking it was my father, but it was my mother. Are you okay? I'm okay. But what about Jane? Well, she's okay. I felt something was off with my mother's words and tried to head to the living room. Where are you going? I have to help Jane. It's really okay if Stacy goes. It might upset your father again. Okay, I'll stay here. My mother's advice was reasonable. My going might only make the situation worse. I decided to trust my mother's words that everything was okay. I'm sorry. I should have been stronger. My father had a domineering personality, so my mother was always desperate not to upset him. It's not your fault. Thank you for everything. After a while, my sister came to my room. Jane, Dad went back to work, so it's all okay now. Yeah, but did he say anything to you? A little, but it's nothing Stacy should worry about. I'm okay. My sister always kept a smile no matter the situation. Even though she was also suffering, in addition, my mother always tried to intervene and protect me from my father's outbursts. I was always being helped. I desperately looked for ways to not be a burden to them. This situation changed when my sister became a middle schooler. She started to keep her distance from me. Until then, she had been helping me with everyday tasks like dressing and going to the bathroom. But as she became busier with club activities and friends, I thought I had to endure it. I have to try harder. By this time, not only my legs, but also the grip strength in both hands had weakened considerably. It was becoming difficult to hold heavy objects. Yet, I didn't give up. One day, as I was organizing my room and putting away books on the shelf, it happened. When I reached for the shelf, it wobbled under the unexpected weight, and things fell around me. Ouch, I need to pick them up quickly. However, being in a wheelchair, I couldn't reach the floor. As I struggled, the door was flung open. What's all this noise? What is this? It was the worst-case scenario. I didn't want my father to see this. I tried to say something on the spur of the moment, but couldn't articulate well. My father seemed to take it as if I was making excuses. Who do you think is going to clean this up? That is, I don't remember a time when Father actually did anything for me. If there were any, I can't recall them. Of course, I didn't say this out loud. Really? Why do you always do unnecessary things? He sighed with a look of exasperation. He probably doesn't understand how it feels to be shown such an expression. His lectures continued without end. Unlike Jane, you can't do anything. Do you understand that, huh? It's true that compared to my sister, I might not be able to do much. But I want to do what I can on my own. Deciding I was going to be scolded anyway, I expressed my feelings to my father, hoping faintly that it would get through to him. Things you can do, huh? Yes. This time he started laughing out loud. Huh, you say some funny things, as if there's anything you can do. A disabled person like you. I had braced myself for some harsh words, but this was a total denial. Father continued to laugh. This was not an attitude towards one's daughter. From that moment, I stopped thinking, just waiting for time to pass. Hey, are you listening? I didn't even respond. What's wrong with you, creepy? With that, he left the room. Alone in the messy room, I cried. From that day, I vowed not to cry, even though I was still young. From then on, it was mostly my mother who took care of me. Of course, my father did nothing. No, it seemed like he didn't even care. Oh, don't you have a fever? Ah, do I? You should rest today. But I'm okay. I can go. I desperately tried to persuade my mother. However, she insisted I stay home because it would be troublesome if something happened to me. I took the day off school. I wanted to go to school because, ironically, my father was off on such days. Honestly, I wanted to avoid spending the day alone with him. Unexpectedly, something happened. Are you okay? Father entered my room and spoke to me, but I pretended to be asleep to avoid interacting with him. Father didn't leave the room. I covered myself with the blanket, feeling my heart pounding as I waited. I'll leave this here for you. After a while, I sat up. On the table, there were sports drinks and jelly. I couldn't help but feel happy. I had never experienced even this much from him. My mind was in turmoil. What was his purpose that day? Father checked on me several times. Each time, I pretended to be asleep. Are you okay? Mother returned from her part-time job. Yeah, I don't think I have a fever. What happened? Somehow I felt like my father was being kind today. Ah, that's good. Good. What was she talking about, actually? I asked your father to take care of you. Really? It seems like it was okay then. Okay, as in we didn't really talk, but I was surprised. I had a firm talk with him. Hopefully, he'll start being nicer to you. I felt mixed emotions. Just when I thought I had managed not to be disturbed, I didn't know what to do afterward. Just as my mother said, he began to show more concern for me. He started to take care of me actively, and we even began to have a bit of conversation. It seems like you and Dad are getting along better. Ah. Does it look that way? I'd be happy if you two got along, but after everything that's happened, yeah, I understand. It's not easy. I also want to play with you. It's okay. I immediately smiled at my sister. I was hoping that my relationship with my father would improve. When I entered middle school, my father's attitude towards me became stricter. I knew why. It was because Jane was preparing for her exams. I thought it was understandable, but I realized it wasn't just that. I need to go to the bathroom. I asked my father for help, even though I could go by myself if I tried. I deliberately chose to ask him. I'm busy right now, so it's impossible. You're in middle school. Now, shouldn't you be able to go to the bathroom by yourself? I thought to myself. This must be the real side of my father. Everything up to now felt like a fleeting dream, and there were more changes to come. My mother also started to become as cold as my father. Mom, I need help with something. Sorry, I'm busy right now, maybe later. I couldn't ask my sister for help. Eventually, it became clear that I was a low priority to everyone. Even when I asked for something, I was ignored. Even though I had grown since becoming a middle school student, not being able to interact with my family was hard. From now on, Stacy will eat in her room. What? Why? All right, my mother and sister remained silent. Thus, I began to eat alone in my room more frequently. One of the reasons for this was the results from a hospital visit. My condition was not improving. The disease was progressing. This was a decision made by my father. After seeing those results, I started to question if I really belonged to this family. Why only Stacy? I heard such a conversation while studying. Just get ready quickly. If Stacy isn't going, then I'll stay home too. Are you sure your first choice for high school is a private school? Right? Yes, but stop this, please. Are you opposing me too? You can stay if you want, but then forget about the private school. I realized I had overheard something terrible. Finally, the mystery seemed to unravel. Father had been using the exams as leverage to manipulate my mother and sister. Until now, I had never harbored any hatred towards my father, but this was going too far. However, what could I, barely able to move properly, do? From that day on, that's all I could think about. I'll be out for a bit. I'm sorry, Stacy. I'm okay. I could hear my father's voice from afar, seemingly urging them to hurry. See you, better go quickly. I'd put on a brave face to avoid making them worry further about me. They began to leave without me regularly. As this continued, I got used to it. Initially, they tried to hide their outings from me, but at some point, my father no longer bothered to conceal it. All right, let's eat out today. Come on, let's go. Isn't this too sudden? Yeah, I decided hurry up. Of course, Stacy stays. My sister, sitting next to me, tried to speak up against my father, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. I'm fine, go on. Looks like Stacy understands better. Hey, do you know what they say about me at work? Father began to talk about how pitiful he felt. I've been feeling miserable at work, being known as the parent of a daughter with a disability. Do you understand how frustrating that is? As if I could understand, even if that were true. Taking it out on his daughter like this is utterly inappropriate for a father. But as a middle school student, there was no way I could stand up to my parents and live independently, especially given my condition. The difference with and without support was day and night. I'll manage on my own, I'm okay. My mother and sister looked worried. Besides, if I went with you, I'd just be in the way, and there are the stares from others too. Although my sister wasn't fully convinced by my words, she left with our parents. I knew opposing my father at this point was dangerous. It seemed like a wise decision. Even after I became a high school student, my father's attitude towards me remained unchanged. However, an event occurred that made all the previous troubles seem minor. Sigh, what should I do? I watched my family leave and return to my room, wondering how long I would be trapped in this life. It was during the summer vacation of my 3rd year in middle school. I'm sorry, but could you look after Stacy for about 3 days? Aren't you going together? See, Stacy is also a student preparing for exams, and apparently wants to focus on her studies. Is that okay? Yeah, and leave it to me. And so I was left in the care of my grandparents. Lying as naturally as breathing, Father didn't seem to feel any guilt towards his own parents. Watching my father wave goodbye with a smile, I felt an indescribable fear. Once my parents were out of sight, my grandmother began to question me. It's just us here. You don't have to hold back. Huh, are you really okay with not going if I'm there? Mom and Jane can't enjoy themselves. That's the last thing I want, I replied emphatically. Stacy, you're so kind. Not really, but here, you don't need to worry about anyone's gaze. You can do as you like. Yeah, thank you. Grandmother might have seen right through me. Still, she didn't probe any further. It was truly comfortable being there. As a middle schooler, I lacked the power and wisdom to change my situation, and being scrutinized by others wasn't exactly pleasant. so I was grateful for my grandmother's warm vigilance. 3 days passed, and my mother and sister came to pick me up. Oh, just the two of you. I'm sorry my husband went back ahead. I see. Was Stacy okay? She was a very good girl. Here's a piece of advice from me. Make sure to give her lots of attention. Yes, I listened to my mother and grandmother's conversation from behind the door. On the way back, I'm okay, you know. You don't have to push yourself. That's right, we're on your side, Stacy. I know, but I don't want you to get into trouble because of me. Upon returning home, I continued to receive cold treatment from my father. It was back to the usual daily routine. Normally my heart would have broken, but with the support of my mother and sister, I barely managed to endure. However, perhaps because they were ordered by my father, they began to conspicuously avoid me. Being ignored by my father was one thing, but having my sister and mother start to act like him was especially painful. It felt as though my heart was being squeezed, and it felt as though I was completely alone. It's okay. I can do this. Eventually, these words became like a mantra to me. From then on, I tried to stay in my room as much as possible when at home. I figured if I stayed in my room, I wouldn't have to interact with anyone and could avoid unnecessary distress. However, I realized that this was a mistake. It was a Sunday in the spring of my second year of high school. When I woke up, the house seemed unusually quiet. Heading to the living room, I found a piece of paper on the table. Unfortunately, we don't need a disabled person like you. Try your best to live. What is this? There was a piece of paper on the table addressed to me. Indeed, I couldn't freely use my legs, but that was no reason for such treatment. Perhaps my father had reached his limit. Then a call from my father came through on my smartphone. Hello, is that Stacy? Did you see the letter? I saw it, but, well, that's the situation. See you. Wait a minute. What do you want? Obviously. What's this letter about? It's exactly as it says. I'm tired of raising a daughter like you. Don't worry about me. With that, the call abruptly ended. Desperately thinking about what to do, I decided to call my mother next. Hello, Mom. You saw the letter, didn't you? I'm just a nuisance because I'm disabled, and even called a monster. I see, but don't worry. Because you're not the daughter of such a worthless man. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Listen carefully. Call this number I'm about to give you. Wait a minute. Explain properly. I'm sorry your father is nearby. I'll call you back later. I was simply stunned. If what my mother said was true, then I was. What did it mean to not be my father's child in the first place? Pondering gave me no answers, so I called the number my mother gave me. The person who answered introduced themselves as a lawyer named Lawyer Hanson. I was told by my mother to call you. I see. I would like to discuss this matter further with you. Thus I went to the law firm as instructed. There I was told about the meaning of my mother's words and learned about my true origins. Everything was shocking at first, and I couldn't believe it, but it seemed that my mother and sister had always hidden the truth for my sake. Afterward, I started living on my own. Thanks to Lawyer Hanson, I was living comfortably without any issues. 8 years flew by since that revelation from my mother, and during these 8 years, there were also happy moments. After graduating from university, Jane also started living on her own. Jane, what's up? Sorry for suddenly calling. It seems like Dad has found out where you live. What? Just to let you know, neither Mom nor I told him anything. I know, even after moving away. I had been in contact with my mother and sister, of course, without letting my father know, so he's probably coming here. I see. All right, this might be a good chance for payback, right? What, I can live like this because of Mom and you, right? Maybe. But so let me give a little back. Plus, we have to think about Mom too. True. I'd also left home as if I was running away. It's not your fault, Jane. A week after the call from my sister, just as she said, my father showed up at my apartment. The intercom rang, and I went to answer it. Yes, it's been a while, Stacy. What are you doing here? How can a disabled person like you live in such a high-rise apartment? Well, why do you think? What kind of way is that to talk to your father? I glanced behind my father and saw my mother standing there, looking apologetic. It seemed she had also suffered since I left. Shall I tell you then? I explained to my father how I was able to live like this. Then he started hurling abuses at my mother. What's the meaning of this? I knew nothing about it. I wanted to tell you at first, but you made a disgusted face when you found out Stacy was disabled, didn't you? Of course. Who wouldn't? A child from someone else, and disabled at that. I was shocked, shedding when Lawyer Hansen told me, thinking my heart might stop from the impact. According to Lawyer Hansen, I was the child of my mother's close friend. My biological father had died in an accident, and my birth mother was terminally ill with cancer, with not much time left. My current mother was who she turned to in her time of need. Thus, I was adopted. Moreover, my birth mother had left a considerable amount of money to ensure I wouldn't be in trouble. The apartment I was living in was originally my real parents' home. Isn't it wrong to blame Mom? Shut up. No, I won't. I also know about the terrible things you've done to her, even after I moved out. My father's tyranny didn't stop. Previously, I was the target, but now it was my mother's turn, right? I looked to my mother for agreement. She nodded silently. There's no proof. What if I said there is? I took out my smartphone and played a recording. It captured my father's verbal abuse and physical aggression towards my mother. How about that? You understand now, right? When did you? I've been in contact all along, even after moving out. You didn't notice, did you? Well, you wouldn't. Damn it. No matter how much you shout, it's useless. With all this evidence, you know what's coming next, right? What are you planning? I looked at my mother and signaled with my eyes. I'm divorcing you. What? It's obvious, isn't it? But don't worry, Mom and I will live here together. I won't allow such selfishness. I don't care about your opinion, Dad. Father probably didn't know, but this had been planned for a long time. Being disabled and still messing around, Father, seemingly very agitated, attempted to resort to violence. That's when it happened. Please, stop. Such a voice came from the back of the house. Who are you? This person is my husband. Husband? Nice to meet you. My name is Greg. Father, surprised, lowered his raised hand. Did you know about this? Mother nodded. Of course, even Jane knows. Without the consent of the parents, you do whatever as you please, huh? I'm already an adult. There's no problem. So, could you please leave now? If only he had left then. But as expected, he hadn't given up yet. Wait, you inherited other assets as well, right? So what? As your parent, I have the right to receive some of that inheritance. It was ludicrous. There was no such right. I almost laughed at my desperate father. What's so funny? Because you're saying something so off base. Father stomped around in frustration. It's going to be tough from here on, but good luck. There will be compensation. And oh, I've also talked to Grandma and Grandpa. Relying on them will be futile. You went that far. Father became meekly submissive. Maybe he was reflecting on his actions. There's nothing more to talk about. Goodbye. Wait, please. I'm begging you. Father performed a perfect prostration, throwing away his pride and bowing his head to someone he had neglected. I wondered how that felt. I thought about such things, but no matter what he did, my feelings wouldn't change. It's pointless. Just go away. Even after I beg with all my heart, yes. If you're not leaving, shall I call the police? There's evidence, and you might get arrested. Frightened by my words, Father fled the scene as if running away. As the tension eased, I let out a big sigh. Well done. Thanks. It was quite nerve-wracking. But are you really okay with this, living here together? You mean? Yes, that's not a problem. We've discussed it and decided together, right? Exactly. We're free here. I also share the outcome with my sister. That's great. See, it turned out okay, right? I actually wanted to go there too. Just knowing that is enough for me. Come visit sometime. I will. I'll make time. Thus, my mother and I were freed from the shackles named a father. There was still some finalization left, but on that day, the three of us celebrated. Later, my mother and I visited Lawyer Hansen with all the evidence already in place. Things proceeded smoothly. Thank you for everything. Not at all. This is my job, after all. Please make sure my father gets the punishment he deserves. The matter if he's under arrest or not will be up to the police, but leave the compensation issues to me. 2 weeks after the consultation, my parents were officially divorced. Now, my mother wouldn't have to endure verbal abuse or physical harm from my father. I was genuinely happy about this development. After the divorce was finalized, all of my mother's belongings were moved to our apartment. Thank you, really. It's nothing. This is all I can do. Plus, I owe it to you for all the help you've given me until now. You don't have to do anything in return. I want to. It's my decision. With that, a new life began for us, including my mother. Jane also started visiting us whenever she found the time. Now we can finally live in peace. Thank you for everything, Jane. Of course, blood-related or not, Stacy, you're my one and only precious sister. Yeah. I noticed my mother looking troubled. What's wrong? Ah, your father called the phone. Let me handle it. I took my mother's smartphone and answered the call. I was wrong. Can you come back home? Mom isn't going back. Is that? Stacy, I was wrong before. Give me another chance to make things right. Sorry, that's impossible, no matter what. And don't ever contact us again. I hung up the phone and immediately set it to block his number before handing it back to my mother. Was everything okay? Of course. So, don't worry. It seems my father had quit his job at the company he was working for. We don't know what became of him afterward. He might be living somewhere alone, feeling lonely. But wherever he is and whatever he's doing, it's no longer our concern. On the other hand, we're enjoying our days happily as a family. Feeling this liberated is a first for me in my life. I want to continue walking this happy path with my family.